One thing that is definitely destroying video games is the crazy woke ideology and political correctness which is being forced into the games. For example, if we want to play as a samurai, obviously we want to play as a Japanese warrior and not to be forced to play as a black person warrior or female warrior as it happened recently in Assassin's Creed. Or to play as a queer character without any other choice. This is an issue, really, for players. The other thing which is destroying video games are aggressive monetization practices, never-ending microtransaction, insane pay-to-win, or even gambling loot boxes, like in casinos. These practices has to be stopped, as well as practice when a company shut down a game server right after you purchase your favorite game. I, as a computer game player, stand fully with the other players. We want fair game and we don't want to be cheated.
Thank you. As a young boy, 30 years ago, the most important decision for me was Bulbasaur, Charmander, or Squirtle. I loved playing Pokemon and wanted to be the very best. 30 years later, if I go to my mom's attic, pull out my old Game Boy, and put in some new batteries, boom, Professor Oak is telling me to pick my starter. Charmander all the way. But today, too many video games will not work 30 years later. They might not even work 30 days later. Despite games being sold with no expiry date, the moment the game makers decide to shut down support, these games become unplayable. Game over, no Charmeleon. It's bad for all lovers of games, as the 1.2 million people signing this petition to stop destroying video games shows. Our laws and game industry should learn something from Charizard and evolve. Stop remote disabling and keep games playable so gamers who want to be the very best can actually catch them all.
Almost 1.3 million people across Europe have signed this initiative. And I think that's a signal we need to take seriously. But taking it seriously also means that we have to ask the right questions. And the right question is not only how do we protect consumers, and don't take me wrong, because that is one of the important questions, but the right question is also how do we build a stronger European game industry? Because right now, Europe is competing against giants in the US and in Asia. And if we respond to this initiative with unworkable solution, we do not help consumers, we help our competitors. Video games are complex, creative works built on licensed content, online infrastructure, and third-party arrangements. Forcing companies to keep games running indefinitely or hand over the server code might be a solution, but it's not the simple solution in every situation. In many cases, it is technically or financially impossible and legally problematic. And it would hit the smaller companies and studios hardest. What we should do instead is three things. Better transparency for consumers upfront, fair notice before the games goes offline, and thirdly, a better condition for European developers to grow, compete and keep gamers engaged.
Colleague Warborn, I can agree with a lot of what you said, but you also spoke about the importance of defending the video game industry in Europe. I can very much agree with that. But of course, when we legislate our market for our consumers, we don't just apply that legislation to European companies. We can apply to whatever companies want to operate in our market. So given that reality, would you then change your opinion or be open to making sure that consumer protection can go in hand with supporting European video game industries? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. That's, I think, what I said as well. If we need to have transparency so that the consumers know what they buy, and in some cases I think that is not very clear today. But at the same time, it is a growing industry that is important for Europe, and I think without the publishers, without the developers, there will be no engagement from the consumers. So we need to have both in mind and not only one of the issues. And that's how we build a strong European gaming industry and a strong community for the users.
Just simply have one question. What do you tell European publishers like CD Projekt Red who actively support this initiative by arguing that they don't want it. So I think there are many publishers in Europe who know that they build a community and they do not want to disappoint them, and they know that they need customers happy. So what do you tell publishers from Europe that you are not fully supporting this initiative?
I think you're absolutely right in this. And the thing is that all publishers are not the same. They have different business models, they work differently, and that's why if we do any regulation, we have to take every different companies into play. We have this think small principle in the European Union when we do our legislation, and that means that we have to cater for not least the smallest ones. And I'm afraid that if we have too hard regulation on this area, then we will not have European publishers there, and that will be at the loss, of course, of the businesses, but also of the consumers.
Dear people of Europe, this is for Gressin, for Beats, for Silverbolt, for IPOA. Because I was not only Lukas Sieper, I was Wilhelm von Bergen. Wilhelm von Bergen led men and women into battle on the fields of Mount and Blade Napoleonic Wars. He commanded up to 50 players. He trained twice every week and fought clan matches on the weekend. He edited a community newspaper, and he organized a World Cup with dozens of players, with hundreds of players from dozens of nations. And Wilhelm von Bergen existed only because Tailwalls and Flying Squirrel did not sunset the game. They turned a community mod into an official DLC. They allowed community-hosted servers. They delegated admin rights to players. They supported the modding ecosystem instead of shutting it down. Wilhelm von Bergen was lucky. I was lucky. So today I ask the Commission and my colleagues to support the ECI Stop Killing Video Games. Not only to stop killing video games, but to protect the lives that we live.
The Commissioner said that he understands the problem, and I'm glad to hear that, but that the Commission is not ready to present a solution quite yet. That's okay. We've waited many years for many amazing video games to come about, and we've also sometimes waited many years for great European laws to come. I just hope we don't have to wait as long as we've been waiting for GTA 6 to see a proposal from the Commission. And today we've spoken a lot about loving video games, but we also love in this House is democracy and citizens' rights to have their needs and their views and their desires expressed. And this is not just about 1.3 million signing a petition. After our committee meeting, I received dozens of emails from people saying, this is the first time I've watched the European Parliament speak, and I agree with you. I've received emails from around the world of people saying, I want to see the EU lead on this. We might have not been quoted on Le Monde or Euractiv, but we were on the Twitch streams, we were on the subreddits. We were reaching citizens where they are, and this is really what citizens care about. So I am really proud to support this initiative, and I deeply, deeply hope that the Commission will come forward with a proposal.
Nearly 1.3 million Europeans signed the Stop Destroying Video Games initiative. They deserve our serious engagement, and they deserve it in good faith. Let me be clear about what this initiative asks. When a company ends support for a game that people have already bought and paid for, it must leave that game in a working state, rather than reaching into our devices and switching it off. It does not ask for free servers forever. It does not ask for endless updates. It asks that what we paid for cannot be deliberately destroyed. So I am happy to hear from you, Commissioner. You take it seriously. However, at the last 3 public hearings, Mr. Abamonte, on behalf of Commission, repeated the arguments of a handful of the largest publishers, almost word for word. That always online is simply a technical necessity, that this is really a copyright question, that consumer rights must somehow be removed for consumer safety. Dear Commission, these arguments do not reflect how games actually work, and they do not reflect what these citizens are asking for. Players have kept Counter-Strike and Minecraft running on their servers for over a decade, which means that the only thing standing between a paid-for game and its destruction is not technology, it is a business decision. If the Commission really would believe these arguments, then buying isn't owning, and piracy isn't stealing, and as a pirate last time I checked, you disagreed with those statements.
When you buy, let's say, a toaster and it breaks, you often can't repair it. Spare parts are not available, manuals are not accessible, and necessary updates, software updates are not provided. And the result, consumers are faced to throw away a product that they could have easily been using longer. And that is so annoying, and a lot of citizens complain to us. And I'm so proud that we found a legislative solution to it, the right to repair, which obliges producers to repair their own products, and that gives consumers several tools to repair their purchases themselves. But this logic of extending the lifetime of physical products doesn't apply to video games. And this is the core of the European Citizens Initiative we are talking about today. When you buy a video game that is connected to the publisher online, you actually purchase a license for using it. A license defined by the publisher that potentially can end at any time for any reason. Just that you're not aware of it. And if the publisher then disconnects a video game after notification, not only the support ends, it is literally dead and non-repairable for you, no longer playable for the consumer. So over 1.2 million Europeans demand us to put an end to this forced and untimely death of video games. And I congratulate all the citizens who were so active and also the organizers of this great European Citizens Initiative. As the Internal Market Committee, we are working hard to ban a practice from the single market that forces consumers to buy new products to the detriment of their wallets and the planet, planned obsolescence. Planned obsolescence is defined as the deliberate design of a product with an artificially limited useful life. And this logic also needs to apply to video games in EU consumer law. And I sincerely hope and urge the European Commission to come up with a solution on how the specific situation of a licensing model can ensure the same level of consumer protection for gamers. A solution to avoid the unknown, arbitrary end of the gaming fun and a long life to what has long become a part of our culture. Thank you.
Firstly, let me congratulate the organizers on collecting 1.3 million signatures. That shows that this issue matters to European citizens. Today, a video can easily cost over €70 or more. Imagine paying for a game only for the publisher to switch it off forever in a couple of months after that. No access, no ownership, gone. Most people would call that unfair. And this is not only about consumer rights. Video games are also about culture. They build communities, develop creativity, develop skills, and form part of Europe's digital cultural heritage. When you buy a book or a board game, you don't expect it to disappear overnight. Why should we accept that in the digital world? And we know that technical solutions exist. Some games continue working even after official support ends. It's about keeping games playable, about responsibility towards consumers. They deserve transparency and legal certainty. This is why the Commission should look for a balanced solution for consumers, publishers and game developers and address this gap in the upcoming Digital Fairness Act.
I love video games. I've been collecting them since I was a little girl. All the memories, the friendships, winning and losing together. And here's the thing, I can still play those games, those old console games from the 90s, but many newer ones, gone. Not because they broke, but because a publisher decided to shut down a server, sometimes without even telling the players. And we're talking about an industry bigger than movies. Esports draws more viewers than traditional sports right now. This is real culture, and it is being deleted. If you buy something, shouldn't you then own it? That's the idea behind the Stop Destroying Video Games initiative, supported by over 1.3 million Europeans. And we're not asking for everything. We cannot place the entire financial burden of preservation on developers, of course, especially on the smaller ones. But at the very least, games should be allowed to survive when their servers don't. That's not radical, that's the bare minimum, and I hope the Commission will follow the initiative.
I would like to begin by congratulating everyone who organized and supported this initiative. European citizens' initiatives allow people to put the issues they care about directly on the European agenda. Within 1 year, the ECI obtained nearly 1.3 million validated statements of support from EU citizens and reached required thresholds in a remarkable 24 member states. This is the 14th successful ECI, and successful ECIs have triggered public debate and a number of actions across our Union. Most of you are familiar, of course, with this initiative that we discussed this morning. Let me summarize in just a few words. Video games are a leading creative industry. Its revenues are estimated at 170 billion euros globally and around 22 billion in EU alone. This makes the video game industry worth 7 times the music industry, for example. Playing video games is a regular pastime for 3 in every 4 European citizens. The issue at stake in this ECI is the changing nature of video games. Increasingly, they work as services relying on the game publisher's support. The publishers can, and as the experience shows, do stop supporting their games. This prevents the players from playing them further, even though they may have already paid for them. And this is a complex issue with several implications. Beyond the EU copyright law and consumer rights, it is also about our digital heritage and the sustainable evolution of digital business models. The ECI organizers presented their initiative to Executive Vice President Virkkunen, Commissioner McGrath, and to Commission services in February this year. The European Parliament heard the ECI organizers on April 16. The Commission has taken good note of these positions and everything that was said. And we're now examining the ECI and preparing our reply. We are not yet in a position to issue detailed comments on this initiative. Nevertheless, I would like to highlight the importance of fair and transparent conditions. As European consumers, gamers should be entitled to enjoy the digital services that they have paid for, as provided in their contract and in accordance with their reasonable expectations. We also agree that the European video games industry stands to gain from innovating and adapting business models in a way that meets consumer expectations. At the same time, we must highlight the complexity of the issue at stake. As part of our assessment, we will also examine how existing rules apply and whether they would require further clarifications. So I trust that this debate will address the various facets of the problem and further develop some of the arguments put forward at the 16th of April hearing in the European Parliament. The Commission will then finalise its reply in the form of a communication to be presented before the summer. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you today, and I will convey your views to Executive Vice President Virkkunen and Commissioner McGrath.
On 16th of April, Jury and IMCO, in association with PETI, held a joint public hearing on the European Citizens' Initiative, Stop Destroying Video Games. We had a constructive and forward-looking discussion. We drew on the expertise of the organisers of this initiative, who are dedicated in mobilising to shape the EU's legislative agenda. Video games are not just entertainment. They are art, innovation, and a vital part of our cultural landscape. Our public hearing allowed us to explore how EU law can better balance the protection of intellectual property with the rights of consumers and creators, and how digital ownership can evolve to reflect the realities of a fast-changing industry. The Stop Destroying Video Games initiative, backed by nearly 1.3 million citizens, highlights a real problem. Users lose access to games they have paid for, sometimes even without a warning. Thus, stronger protection for consumer rights is needed in a sector. The initiative calls for publishers who sell or license video games to to ensure that video games actually are functional and playable for a longer period, with no remote shutdowns unless they first provide consumers viable means to continue playing. But we must also recognize that publishers, especially small startups, depend on sustainable business models to keep creating. They often struggle with rising costs, fragmenting markets, and piracy risks. So, how do we fix this fairly? Several priorities emerge from our hearing with solutions that take all elements into account. First, fair access to players, coupled with stronger transparency and information obligations for consumers. Second, protection for publishers. Third, clear rules for preservation and achieving solutions. Fourth, a level playing field. Colleagues, this is all about trust. Trust in European creative industry, driving jobs and culture, but also trust in consumer rights that actually work.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Committee of Petitions, I would like to thank the organisers of the European Citizen Initiative Stop Destroying Video Games for presenting this initiative to Parliament. Citizens can participate directly in the European democratic process, contribute to the European legislative debate and call on the Commission to consider taking action in areas falling within the competences of the European Union. The collection of more than 1 million verified signatures across several member states demonstrates the strong engagement of European citizens on these issues. From the perspective of the Committee of Petitions, this initiative reflects concern increasingly raised by European citizens regarding digital products and consumer rights, particularly in situations where legally purchased video games become partially or completely unusable following the shutdown of servers or the termination in online support by publishers. The organisers are calling on the European Commission to examine whether EU legislation should provide safeguards ensuring that video games remain functional even after the end of their commercial life cycle, without imposing an obligation on publishers to provide unlimited technical support. This debate goes beyond the video games sector itself. It concerns consumer protection, transparency and citizen trust in the EU digital single market. The Committee of Petitions encourages the European Commission to respond to this expectation by considering concrete measures, including, where appropriate, legislative initiative aimed at strengthening consumer rights in the digital environment. This initiative provides an opportunity to constructive dialogue between consumers, developers, publishers and regulation in order to develop proportionate solutions that ensure both innovation and a high level of consumer protection throughout the European Union. Thank you.